In the aftermath of 9/11, the U.S. military began plans to target the terrorist group al-Qaeda, as well as Afghanistan's Taliban government, who had harbored them. As a commander of the 75th Ranger Regiment, Joseph Votel was central to the military's response.
Tell our audience, why were you going into Afghanistan? 9/11 happens, why are you landing?
Well, it was very, very early on we identified Afghanistan as kind of the locus for where al-Qaeda was operating from. And of course, they were being supported by the Taliban government. And it's important for Americans to recognize that it wasn't just the Taliban, it was the Taliban government that was in charge in Afghanistan and had given safe haven to al-Qaeda, and in particular to Osama bin Laden, and where a lot of the planning and coordination for this operation had taken place. So very early on, the administration at the time, the Bush administration, had recognized that if we were going to hold somebody responsible, that person was in Afghanistan, and that's when we needed to strike a blow. And so that's what brought us to Afghanistan at that particular time.
These weren't large American forces, these were special
No.
forces. Talk about that decision to go small, unconventional.
So, Afghanistan, when you think about Afghanistan, it's a landlocked country. It's an operation just to get to Afghanistan, much less to do anything when you get there. You have to fly over mountains, you're flying over vast areas of desert, very forbidding terrain. There's not a lot of infrastructure in place. And so the decision that was made was that we're going to conduct our operations both in the southern part of the country and the northern part of the country with small forces, largely built around special operations forces.
From the first days, Minnesotans were on the front line in Afghanistan. After 9/11, a small group of Special Forces soldiers was assigned to protect Hamid Karzai, who had emerged as a potential leader for a post-Taliban government. Mike McElhiney was part of the Special Forces group assigned to eliminate Taliban forces and protect Karzai.
Some guys had been to war on the team, some guys had not. And every war is a little bit different. And based on the intel reports and how these guys do things, it was scary. We were hearing about how these assassinations were going down, and there was going to be no surrender, I guess you could say. Getting captured was not like an option. You've got your mission. Our mission was a simple kill and capture al-Qaeda and conduct an insurgency, basically to rouse the Taliban. We thought we had months to prepare for war. Well, like the second night there, we started getting probed by the Taliban.
Mike's unit was involved in multiple firefights with enemy forces. Mike was wounded by an errant U.S. bomb and ultimately lost his arm. Today, Mike serves veterans statewide through his work for the Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs.
My dominant arm, my right arm below the elbow, amputated. Scars on my legs from shrapnel. Still have shrapnel. I can sit outside with shorts on and whatnot and see little pieces here and there and scars. These things happen. I was proud to do it. If I knew the circumstances were going to be the same, I'd do it again exactly the same way, because I think we did what we were asked to do, and I think we did it well.
Minnesotans played a role in military operations in Afghanistan for 2 decades. David Nguyen deployed with the 82nd Airborne Division in early 2002.
I felt the urge to get out and be part of something bigger and greater than myself. I remember very clearly September 11th, I was in my kitchen and my dad called me and he was very concerned. And he asked me if, are you okay? Is everything okay? And I'm like, I don't know why you're even. And then I saw on the news what was going on. And that was probably one of the most sobering moments of my entire life. I knew that I had just joined the service and that what was going on right now was going to directly impact my journey. They asked the trainees and they said, well, now who wants to join the airborne group? And it was just dead silent in the room. And so I was like, we're gonna do this. When we arrived to Afghanistan, I remember very clearly landing on the C-130 and waiting for the back tailgate to open up. And I remember looking at the back tailgate and being like, I can't believe this is happening. Like this, it wasn't that long ago that I was at my house in Minnesota. I remember the airfield. We landed at Kandahar airfield in Afghanistan, and it was just this vast, barren desert. It felt like it was the Wild West.
David completed ROTC at the University of Minnesota alongside Andrew Bundermann.
Andrew was a brilliant tactician. He could come up with things on the fly that you wouldn't think were possible.
The situation in Afghanistan remained volatile for many years. By 2009, Andrew Bundermann had been placed in charge of Combat Outpost Keating in northern Afghanistan, which was attacked by Taliban forces in the fall of that year.
We got to Cop Keating, and when I say we, I mean Bravo Troop, in end of May of 2009. And there were 2 platoons down at Cop Keating, which was in the bottom of a very austere bowl in northeast Afghanistan. I was in charge of the Cop. And then on the morning of October 3rd, our unit was attacked by roughly 300 to 400 Taliban fighters. We were about 53 in numbers. That enemy action right there was one of the situations where a series of events leads you to a place in life that you never thought you would be, and you have to use everything you've gathered to that point in time to successfully do what you're supposed to do and come out on top. The rate of incoming fire, both direct and indirect, was overwhelming. I mean, when indirect fire hits, even when it's a little ways away, you can feel it, right? I mean, there's this wave of that air moving or other debris that you can feel. And when that's happening around you, everything is loud. It's a full shock on not only your ears, your eyes, you can feel everything that's going on. Those first few hours where that overwhelming amount of firepower was out there was really trying to just manage the situation and start to bring your assets online so that you can decrease their rate of fire and you can take control of the battlefield.
His outnumbered men eventually repelled the sustained and well-coordinated attack. Andrew Bundermann was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross. Staff Sergeants Clinton Romachet and Ty Carter were awarded the Medal of Honor for their actions.
We spent the entire day defending, counterattacking, and then defeating that enemy. And in the process, unfortunately, we lost 8 Americans. I certainly think about those 8 guys every single day and try to think about what their families have had to go through and then continue to move past. Katie and I and the kids and everybody we're around understands the blessings and the joy and everything we have each and every day that others might not get to experience as much. So we need to really be thankful for all those things, not just occasionally, but more often than we think.
Ben Kopp served in the U.S. Army and was deployed to Afghanistan in 2009.
Ben was my only child, and I raised him as a single mother, so my grandfather was truly the strongest male role model that Ben knew. My grandpa encouraged the independence of a young boy by teaching him everything he needed to know about fishing and motors and boats and things like that. When Ben was 7, my grandpa put a fillet knife in his hand and taught him how to clean fish. And he said, "How are they going to learn if you don't allow them to try?" It's my grandfather's service that caused my son to want to join the military. 9/11 to Ben was personal. To him, it was the mockery of his great-grandfather's service to America. And he made a declaration as we were watching the footage together in his bedroom that when he was old enough, he was going to find Osama bin Laden, become an Army Ranger, and make him pay. He left for basic training just 1 month after he graduated from high school, 1 month to the day. And 7 months later, he was assigned to the 3rd Battalion Ranger Regiment. And then comes the spring of 2009, and they're on their way to Afghanistan. They were given advance knowledge that they could expect heavy combat. They were going into what they called a hot zone, a place that hadn't been visited by combat for a long time. There was a firefight with the Taliban. There was 3 Ranger snipers who were pinned down and had nowhere to go. They called in for backup, and backup wouldn't come. They were in too dangerous of a zone to even send backup in, but Ben was close by with his gun team. He was a gun team leader, so Ben came forward, and he saved those 3 Rangers. And then 9 days later, I got the phone call from his company commander that he'd been shot by a sniper, had undergone surgery, and they were awaiting him to wake up. Ben landed at Walter Reed 4 days after he was shot. My mother and I were flown out there. We went together, and on July 15th, the next morning, the doctor in charge of his care told my mother and I they believed that he was brain dead. So from my arrival to his removal from life support, which was late in the day on 19 July, I had 5 days with him at the hospital. And if I live to be 200, no 5 days will ever mean as much to me as those 5 days.
Ben Kopp was credited with saving the lives of 6 service members in combat, and as an organ donor, others stateside. He was buried with full military honors at Arlington National Cemetery.